Building collapses in China. Bizarre scenes in a partly unsealed Shanghai. 3 students have been sentenced for involvement in Hong Kong's anti-extradition movement. Hong Kong's 2022 World Press Freedom Index plummets. Welcome to Sound of Hope News. My name is Daniela Wolensack, and today it is May 5th. An 80-story building collapsed in Changsha City in central China on Friday, April 29th. The city mayor stated that 5 people were pulled from the rubble alive, but dozens were still trapped and at least 39 people have been unaccounted for. One Twitter post read, "It happened exactly at noon. I can't even guess how many students were trapped inside." The building was a popular destination for neighborhood residents, including students at a nearby medical school. Another tweet said, "After 48 hours, the safety departments still haven't come. My parents nearby are crying for somebody to come and help." The Associated Press reported that one woman had been rescued after 88 hours. According to authorities, the structure was built without proper permits. Featuring shops, restaurants, apartments, a cinema, and a hotel, it was opened in 2012 with 6 stories. The owner illegally added 2 more stories in 2018. It is feared that nearby buildings may have been damaged as well and could fall. The collapse was not triggered by an external disaster such as a sinkhole or an earthquake, but because of shoddy construction. Changsha police detained 9 people involved in the construction, including the building's owner. They charged another 5 surveyors for giving a false safety audit about a guest house on the 4th to 6th floors. In recent years, shoddy construction is a prevalent problem in China, and unfortunately, collapses uncommon. In March 2020, a Fujian province hotel collapsed, killing 29 and injuring 40. The investigators found the building had been built with 4 stories, but that 3 more had been added on top, stressing the floors below. Even large engineering projects that are at risk from poor safety standards. Last December, a highway bridge collapsed in central China's Ezhou City, killing 4 people and injuring 8. The lockdown in Shanghai was loosened on May 2nd, and residents in some areas were allowed to go out shopping. The act was withdrawn soon after. The Shanghai's official regulations decreed that public transportation and private cars were not allowed on the roads, except in the outskirts of the city where they claimed society has basically reached 0 COVID cases. 2 towns called Zhaoxiang and Jiuling initially had fewer restrictions and allowed private cars to drive on the roads, but in response, banned motor vehicles and even bicycles. Netizens said that because bicycles are illegal, they have been forced to carry supplies with their bare hands for 4 kilometers, which is exhausting. In other places, citizens have found creative ways around the restrictions. In some situations, 3 to 5 people have squeezed themselves onto tricycles, which are technically not banned, and peddled supplies home. This has caused concerns for road safety. In other areas, people have hoisted yokes on their backs. People overseas are confused about this kind of regulation and have asked on social platforms, what is the logic of not allowing the use of transportation? One netizen replied, "The idea is to limit the radius of people's activities. Are prisoners allowed to use transportation?" In Songjiang City, as soon as select regulations were lifted, people flocked to RT Mart to go shopping. Unfortunately, one person was found to be COVID positive, so the entire district immediately returned to a lockdown. This scenario can happen anytime, anywhere in China, as long as its 0 COVID policy remains unchanged. The Hong Kong District Court punished 3 youths with sentences on May 3rd. Police had charged them with rioting way back in 2019, during Hong Kong's anti-extradition movement, and they have been finally tried at court. Wu Zhengfeng, an 18-year-old male nursing student of Tenghua College, and Luo Zhicheng, a 19-year-old female psychology student from Lingnan University, were both sentenced to re-education at a training center, while Liang Qiongsheng, a 25-year-old graphic designer, was sentenced to 2 years and 11 months in prison. According to Radio Free Asia, when the anti-extradition movement in Hong Kong took place in November 2019, the police besieged the Polytechnic University for several days. That led to clashes between police and civilians. The 3 defendants were arrested on Hao Fok Street in Tsim Sha Tsui. 2 of them were younger than 18 at the time. Their judge, Lin Weiquan, said that although there was no evidence that the 3 defendants had committed violent acts, the police found face masks, saline solution, gas masks, and other equipment during their arrest. Judge Lin Weiquan therefore concluded that they had been equipped with these items in the early morning. The judge further said that though the circumstances of this case were not serious, a single spark can start a prairie fire, meaning that they should be sentenced anyways. According to reports, the courtroom was a full house on the day of the verdict. Many classmates, relatives, and friends came to observe. After the sentencing, several people in the gallery made a heart shape with their hands to show the 3 moral support, while friends and relatives shouted to them, "Take good care of yourself," and "We'll wait for you." Reporters Without Borders released its 2022 World Press Freedom Index report on May 3rd, which showed that Hong Kong's ranking had dropped sharply to the 148th position, the worst drop out of all reported countries this year. Observers pointed out that the Hong Kong version of the national security law has been targeting journalists since last year, and the government has increased control over the media. Reporters Without Borders called on democratic countries to actively support freedom in Hong Kong and to put pressure on the CCP. They stated that if the trend is not stopped, Hong Kong's freedom of the press may further deteriorate to the same level as China, which ranks at 175th in the world. Reporters Without Borders stated Hong Kong also had the lowest score for personal safety, with a score of 31.78, which is the level of dire conditions. This means that journalists in Hong Kong are at extremely high risk of physical harm, including murder, detention, and violent beatings. They are also at risk of psychological threats, such as intimidation, surveillance, harassment, hate speech attacks, and bullying, and threats to their career, such as job loss and confiscation of professional equipment. For more than a year, independent Hong Kong pro-democracy media, including Apple Daily, Stand News, and Zhongxin, have been forced to close operations, and the safety of their journalists is at risk. In addition, the Foreign Correspondents Association in Hong Kong announced the suspension of the Human Rights Journalism Awards this year. The reason was stated as, "The red line is unclear, and we do not want to accidentally break the law." The red line refers to government restrictions. In response, the School of Journalism and Communications in Arizona State University announced on May 3rd that it would take over the Human Rights Journalism Award to continue the tradition while the Hong Kong press is unable to. It also announced that it will accept both Chinese and English human rights news entries starting December this year. Ai Weiang of Reporters Without Borders said that the Chinese regime has set a very bad example to the world, stating not only has the CCP aggressively expanded its totalitarian information policies, it has also encouraged other countries to use CCP's technology tools for their own information surveillance and control. Democracies around the world should unite and say no to the CCP's information practices. We must support freedom of information and not allow the CCP to undermine other democratic institutions. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.